There's something almost magical about the idea of stepping into a place where time itself has paused, where the air is thick with the silence of centuries, and every shadow holds a story waiting to be told. Picture this: deep beneath the Earth's surface, hidden from the sun's touch for thousands of years, lie caves so perfectly preserved they feel like snapshots of another world. These aren't just hollows in the rock, they're time capsules, safeguarding treasures and truths from civilizations long gone. Today, we're diving into the forgotten caves that preserved time, uncovering what was hidden for millennia and why these ancient chambers matter more than ever. Think about the last time you stumbled upon something unexpected. A lost keepsake tucked in an old drawer, or a childhood toy buried in the attic. Now multiply that feeling by 1,000, because that's the thrill explorers experience when they find a cave untouched by human hands for ages. These hidden spaces have cradled everything from breathtaking prehistoric art to artifacts that rewrite history books. They've guarded secrets so well that even the faintest scratch on a wall or the residue of a long-extinguished fire can reveal volumes about how our ancestors lived, dreamed, and survived. But why should we care about these silent, shadowy places? Because they're more than just geological wonders, they're bridges to our shared past. Every painting, every tool, every footprint left behind is a piece of a puzzle that helps us understand who we are and where we came from. As we journey through these caves together, we'll unravel mysteries that have waited patiently in the dark and discover how the echoes of ancient lives still resonate in our modern world. So take a deep breath. We're about to step into the darkness where time stands still and history comes alive. There's a reason these hidden caves tug at our imagination so powerfully. They're like nature's own carefully locked treasure chests, holding artifacts and stories in pristine condition, untouched by the chaos of the world above. While ruins on the surface slowly crumble under wind, rain, and human hands, caves offer a sanctuary where time seems to pause. The air inside is often cool, dry, and still, perfect for preserving fragile remnants that would otherwise vanish without a trace. Imagine walking into a chamber where a torch last flickered 5,000 years ago and finding the soot marks still clinging to the walls, or discovering a woven basket so intact you can still see the fingerprints of the person who crafted it. This level of preservation is nothing short of miraculous. In most archaeological sites, organic materials like wood, cloth, or even food decay within centuries, leaving behind only stone and metal. But caves, they've safeguarded the fragile, everyday objects that usually disappear, things like rope made from plant fibers, wooden tools, or even remnants of ancient meals. These aren't just artifacts, they're intimate connections to real people, their daily struggles, and their creativity. A child's toy carved from bone, a bundle of medicinal herbs tucked into a crevice, or the outline of a hand pressed into clay. Each one whispers across the millennia, reminding us that the past wasn't so different from our present. And then there's the art. Some of the most breathtaking prehistoric paintings in existence have survived precisely because they were hidden deep in caves, sheltered from light and moisture. The vibrant ochre and charcoal figures of animals, hunters, and mysterious symbols weren't just decorations, they were messages, rituals, or perhaps even early attempts to make sense of the world. Unlike exposed monuments that erode or fade, these underground galleries remain startlingly vivid, as if the artist stepped away only moments ago. But perhaps the greatest allure is the unknown. Every sealed cave holds the potential to rewrite history. A single discovery, a new painting style, an unfamiliar tool, or even traces of a lost language can shatter assumptions about how ancient societies lived, traded, or worshipped. That thrill of uncovering something no one has seen for thousands of years drives explorers and scientists alike. It's not just about filling museums, it's about piecing together the vast, interconnected story of humanity, one hidden chamber at a time. The story of humanity's rediscovery of its own artistic past begins in a single, unassuming cave in northern Spain. In 1879, a young girl named Maria Sciuola wandered into the caverns of Altamira with her father, an amateur archaeologist named Marcelino Sanz de Sciuola. As her candle flickered against the damp walls, she looked up, and there they were, towering above her, painted in rich reds and blacks, were bison so lifelike they seemed to breathe in the dim light. Their muscular bodies twisted mid-motion, frozen in time alongside handprints pressed into the rock by ancient palms. It was a moment that should have rewritten history on the spot. But the world wasn't ready to believe. When Sciuola announced his discovery, experts laughed. Prehistoric humans, they argued, were simple brutes incapable of such artistry. The paintings had to be modern fakes. It wasn't until decades later, as similar caves were uncovered across Europe, that the truth became undeniable. Altamira's gallery was genuine, a masterpiece created over 14,000 years ago. The cave's ceiling wasn't just rock, it was humanity's first canvas, proof that our ancestors didn't merely survive. They observed, they dreamed, they created. What makes Altamira's legacy so profound isn't just the art itself, but what it revealed about the minds behind it. These weren't crude doodles. The artists used the cave's natural contours to give their paintings depth, shaping bison's shoulders along bulges in the stone or using cracks to suggest motion. They mixed pigments from minerals and charcoal, applying them with brushes made of hair or blown through hollow bones. Every stroke was intentional, a testament to skill and vision passed down through generations. Yet the backlash against Altamira's discovery carries its own lesson. Sometimes the most revolutionary truths are the hardest to accept. When something shatters what we think we know, like the idea that art belonged only to civilized societies, it takes more than evidence to change minds. It takes courage. Today, we recognize these caves as sacred spaces, not just for their art, but for the way they force us to confront our assumptions. Altamira didn't just give us bison on a wall. It gave us a mirror, reflecting back the creativity and complexity we've carried since the dawn of time. And here's the remarkable thing: Altamira was only the beginning. As we'll see, each new cave discovery builds on that first contested revelation, adding layers to a story far older and richer than anyone could have imagined. If Altamira taught us that caves could preserve art, then the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls proved something even more extraordinary, that they could safeguard words. And not just any words, but sacred texts so ancient they predated the oldest known Hebrew Bible manuscripts by 1,000 years. Picture this: a young Bedouin shepherd tossing rocks into a cave in Qumran, near the Dead Sea, in 1947, hoping to scare out a lost goat. Instead, the sound of shattering clay echoes back. Inside, he finds jars not filled with treasure in the traditional sense, but holding something far more precious: fragile parchment scrolls, blackened with age yet still legible. What makes this discovery so staggering isn't just the age of the scrolls written between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE, but the sheer improbability of their survival. Parchment is fragile, ink fades, yet here were 700 manuscripts, some nearly intact, tucked away in the darkness for 2 millennia. The secret. Qumran's caves were nature's perfect archives. The Dead Sea's hyper-arid climate, combined with the cave's stable temperatures and lack of sunlight, created a microenvironment where even organic materials could defy time. Unlike stone carvings or pottery, these scrolls bore the handwritten thoughts, prayers, and laws of real people voices that had been silent since the dawn of the Common Era. But the real shock came when scholars unrolled them. The scrolls included fragments of every book of the Hebrew Bible except Esther, along with hymns, community rules, and apocalyptic visions. Some texts matched later versions nearly word for word, confirming the remarkable accuracy of scribbled traditions. Others offered radical variations, hinting at a time when scripture was still fluid, still being shaped. For historians, it was like finding a library frozen in time, one that revealed Judaism's diversity on the eve of Christianity's birth. Yet the scrolls also posed mysteries. Who hid them? Most scholars point to the Essenes, a devout Jewish sect that may have used Qumran as a retreat. Fearing Roman invasion around 70 CE, they could have sealed their sacred texts in caves, hoping to protect them from destruction. If so, they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. But here's the haunting part: no one came back to retrieve them. The community vanished, leaving their words to wait 2,000 years for a shepherd's errant rock to set them free. What the Dead Sea Scrolls teach us is that caves don't just preserve objects, they safeguard ideas. A single chamber in Qumran held the power to reshape our understanding of religious history, proving that even the most fragile human creations can endure when shielded by stone and silence. And like Altamira's art, their discovery sparked controversy. Early scholars fought over access, and rumors swirled about suppressed texts. Yet today, digitized and translated, the scrolls remind us that some truths, no matter how long buried, refuse to stay hidden. This wasn't just luck. It was a testament to the patience of the earth itself, a reminder that beneath our feet, history sometimes waits in perfect stillness, knowing we'll eventually stumble upon it. And as we'll see, the deeper explorers venture into the world's hidden caves, the more they realize how many stories are still waiting in the dark. While the Dead Sea Scrolls revealed ancient religious texts, another cave halfway across the world was quietly guarding an even larger treasure, one that would rewrite the history of literature itself. In the year 1900, a Taoist monk named Wang Yuanlu was clearing sand from the Buddhist caves of Dunhuang, China, when he noticed something peculiar. Behind a cracked section of wall in the Mogao caves, a hidden chamber yawned open, and inside, stacked floor to ceiling, were bundles upon bundles of manuscripts. Not dozens, not hundreds, but an astonishing 50,000 scrolls and books, all sealed away for nearly 1,000 years. This was no random stash. Dunhuang's hidden library was a meticulously curated collection of Buddhist scriptures, historical documents, medical treatises, folk songs, and even contracts, some written on paper, others on delicate silk. Among them was the Diamond Sutra, a Buddhist text printed in the year 868, now recognized as the world's oldest surviving printed book. Its existence alone shattered assumptions about the timeline of printing technology, proving that bookmaking had advanced centuries earlier than historians believed. But the real marvel was the condition of these texts. Despite their age, the dry desert air and the cave's stable environment had preserved them so well that ink still gleamed on the page, and silk pages remained supple to the touch. What makes Dunhuang's library so extraordinary isn't just its scale or preservation, it's the window it offers into a vibrant, multicultural crossroads. Dunhuang sat at the edge of the Silk Road, where traders, pilgrims, and scholars from China, India, Persia, and beyond exchanged goods and ideas. The manuscripts reflect this diversity, written in languages ranging from Chinese and Tibetan to Sanskrit and even Hebrew. There are star charts mixing Babylonian and Chinese astronomy, medical recipes blending Greek and Indian knowledge, and prayers from faiths long faded into history. This wasn't just a storage room, it was a snapshot of an entire world in dialogue. Yet the library's survival also carries a bittersweet edge. Scholars believe the cave was sealed around the year 1000, possibly to protect its contents from invading armies or shifting political winds. Whoever hid these treasures never returned to reclaim them. Centuries later, when Wang Yuanlu stumbled upon the chamber, he had no idea what he'd found. Tragically, many scrolls were sold or taken by foreign explorers before their true value was understood. Still, what remains is priceless, proof that caves could preserve not just art or artifacts, but the very thoughts and conversations of a bygone era. Today, the Dunhuang manuscripts are scattered across global collections, painstakingly studied to reconstruct lost histories. They've revealed everything from ancient divorce settlements to the earliest known map of the stars. But perhaps their greatest lesson is how fragile knowledge can be, and how a single sealed cave forgotten by time can become a sanctuary for the voices of the past. Unlike the Dead Sea Scrolls hidden by a fleeing community or Altamira's art, meant to endure in darkness, Dunhuang's library feels like a deliberate act of faith, a belief that someday someone would uncover these words and listen. And listen we have, because now we know when humanity's stories are entrusted to the earth remembers. Just when scholars thought Altamira's bison had revealed the pinnacle of prehistoric art, the earth offered another masterpiece, this time hidden beneath a quiet hillside in southwestern France. In September 1940, 4 teenage boys and their dogs stumbled upon the entrance to Lascaux cave while chasing a lost pet. What they found inside would redefine our understanding of Ice Age creativity. As their flickering lamp illuminated the walls, vast herds of animals seemed to surge across the stone: horses with flowing manes, aurochs with curved horns, stags leaping in motion. These weren't mere outlines, they were dynamic, almost cinematic scenes, painted with mineral pigments so vibrant they could have been applied yesterday. The boys had discovered what's now called the Sistine Chapel of Prehistory, a gallery frozen in time for 17,000 years. What sets Lascaux apart isn't just the scale of its art, over 600 paintings and 1,500 engravings, but the astonishing clarity of their preservation. Unlike Altamira, where some pigments had faded, Lascaux's colors remained shockingly vivid. Reds and blacks drawn from iron oxide and manganese still popped against the cream-colored limestone. The secret lay in the cave's natural climate control. A constant temperature of around 12 degrees Celsius and near-perfect humidity created a microenvironment where pigments bonded chemically with the rock, becoming part of the wall itself. Even more striking was the artist's technique. They used the cave's contours to create depth, painting horses along bulges to suggest muscle or using cracks as natural borders between scenes. Some figures were so large, like the 17-foot-long bull, that scaffolding must have been used to reach them. This wasn't doodling in the dark, it was deliberate, sophisticated storytelling. But Lascaux's greatest gift might be its glimpse into Ice Age symbolism. Unlike later art focused on humans or hunting, these paintings centered on animals, many not typically hunted, like lions and rhinos. Some scholars believe the cave was a sacred space, where rituals or initiations took place beneath the watchful eyes of these spirit creatures. Others see it as an early form of visual education, teaching young hunters about animal behavior through art. The most haunting detail, nearly all the paintings face east, as if aligned with the rising sun. Whether calendar, temple, or both, Lascaux's walls pulse with intention, proving our ancestors didn't just survive the Ice Age, they sought meaning within it. Yet this discovery also carries a sobering lesson about preservation. After Lascaux opened to the public in 1948, visitors flocked to see the marvel. But within 15 years, disaster struck. Human breath, body heat, and introduced microbes caused green mold to spread across the paintings like a veil. The very act of admiration was destroying the art. In 1963, authorities made a painful decision. Lascaux would close forever, sealing its wonders from all but a handful of researchers. Today, an exact replica nearby lets visitors experience the cave's magic without endangering the original. It's a poignant reminder that some treasures are too fragile to share, that sometimes the best way to honor the past is to let it rest in darkness. Lascaux's legacy is twofold. It gave us an unparalleled window into Ice Age minds, then taught us the cost of loving such wonders too recklessly. But perhaps there's hope in its story. The same caves that preserved these paintings for millennia might still shelter others waiting for the right moment and the right hands to reveal them. After all, if a dog chasing a rabbit could uncover Lascaux, who knows what else lies hidden just beneath our feet? While Lascaux's painted walls revealed the artistry of ancient humans deep beneath the Mexican desert, a different kind of masterpiece was forming, one shaped not by human hands, but by the slow, patient work of the earth itself. In the year 2000, miners drilling through the Naica lead and silver mine broke into a cavern that seemed ripped from a dream. There, glowing under their headlamps, stood forests of gypsum crystals so enormous they defied belief, some as tall as trees, others wider than a person's reach, all shimmering like ice in the darkness. The largest, nicknamed the Cave of Swords, held crystals over 30 feet long and weighing 55 tons. These weren't just rocks, they were monuments to time itself, 500,000 years in the making. What makes Naica's crystals so astonishing isn't just their size, but the perfect storm of conditions that created them. The cave sits above a magma chamber, which heated groundwater saturated with minerals. For millennia, this scorching, mineral-rich soup hovering around 58 degrees Celsius seeped through the cavern, allowing gypsum molecules to lock together atom by atom, growing at a rate slower than the width of a hair each year. The result, translucent giants so pristine they resemble laser-cut glass, their facets catching light like prisms. To stand among them would be like walking through a cathedral of crystal, where every column hums with the silent energy of the planet's molten heart. Yet this beauty came at a cost. The cave's extreme heat and near-suffocating humidity, over 90%, made it deadly for humans. Without protective suits, explorers risked heatstroke within minutes, their lungs struggling in air thick as soup. Even cameras fogged instantly, leaving scientists to document this alien world in brief, grueling shifts. It's a cruel irony. The very conditions that grew these wonders also made them nearly impossible to study. But perhaps that's fitting. Naica's crystals weren't meant for us. They were Earth's private art project, hidden away until chance and industry pulled back the curtain. And here's the twist. These crystals might hold secrets beyond their splendor. Trapped within their translucent layers could be microscopic bubbles of ancient water, time capsules preserving microbial life that thrived in the cave's hellish heat. If so, they'd offer clues about how life endures in extreme environments, even hinting at possibilities for alien organisms deep within other worlds. But Naica's story took another turn in 2017, when mining operations ceased and pumps maintaining the cave's dryness were shut off. Slowly, groundwater began rising, swallowing the caverns once more. The crystals, now exposed to air for the first time in ages, may eventually crumble, their grandeur returning to the depths that birthed them. Naica teaches us something profound. Caves aren't just keepers of human history. They're alive, still shaping and reshaping themselves in ways we're only beginning to understand. While we race to document these crystal giants before they vanish, their fleeting visibility feels like a gift, a reminder that the Earth's most breathtaking wonders often exist on borrowed time. And somewhere in other hidden chambers, new crystals may already be growing, invisible and patient, waiting for their own moment in the light. Beneath the jungles of Mexico's Yucatán Peninsula lies a hidden world where darkness and water intertwine, a labyrinth so vast it could swallow entire cities. This is Actun, the longest underwater cave system on Earth, stretching over 200 miles like a submerged serpent. But these flooded passage holds aren't just geological marvels, they're time capsules preserving secrets from two eras, the Ice Age and the zenith of Maya civilization. Imagine diving into crystal-clear water, your headlamp cutting through the gloom to reveal a jaguar's skull resting on the silt, its teeth still sharp after 12,000 years. Or spotting a ceramic bowl perched on a ledge, left as an offering to gods whose names we've forgotten. This is where archaeology meets adventure, where every fin kick through the silence might uncover a relic untouched since the day it slipped beneath the waves. What makes Actun's treasures so extraordinary is the same thing that makes them so hard to reach: water. Unlike dry caves where only stone and metal endure, these submerged chambers have safeguarded the fragile remnants of life. Human bones with flesh long dissolved but shapes perfectly preserved, wooden spear shafts still straight, even remnants of ancient campfires now drowned beneath stalactites. The magic lies in the water itself, with almost no oxygen to fuel decay, and minerals that slowly coat organic materials like a protective shell. These cenotes' natural sinkholes became nature's own archival vaults. A Maya child's footprint pressed into soft clay 10 centuries ago might still look fresh, as if they'd just stepped away, but the real heartstopper, the animal bones. During the last ice age, when sea levels were lower, these caves were dry shelters for creatures like giant ground sloths and saber-toothed cats. When melting glaciers flooded the chambers, the water locked their remains in pristine condition. Paleontologists have found entire skeletons of extinct species, some arranged in eerie tableaus, a dire wolf curled as if sleeping, a mastodon's tusk wedged between rocks. These aren't fossils, they're snapshots of life before humans dominated the Americas, preserved with a clarity that leaves scientists speechless. For the Maya, these cenotes were sacred portals to the underworld, places where they communicated with ancestors and deities. Divers have uncovered chilling evidence of rituals: jade masks placed in crevices, obsidian blades likely used in ceremonies, even human remains arranged with care, perhaps sacrifices to appease the gods of Xibalba, their feared realm of the dead. One chamber, nicknamed the Pit of Souls, holds over 100 skeletons, their bones glowing white under dive lights. Were they victims of drought? Willing offerings, each discovery raises as many questions as it answers. Exploring these caves isn't just physically grueling, it's a technological tightrope walk. Divers navigate pitch-black tunnels narrower than coffins, where a single misaligned tank can dislodge millennia of sediment, obliterating clues in an instant. They rely on rebreathers that recycle air to avoid polluting the environment, and 3D mapping tools to document sites without touching them. It's archaeology at its most daring, a dance with danger in pursuit of knowledge. Actun's greatest lesson might be this: sometimes the past doesn't just hide in the shadows, it waits beneath the water's surface, patient and silent, knowing we'll eventually come looking. And when we do, it rewards us with gifts no dry cave could ever offer: the chance to meet our ancestors and the creatures they once feared, face to face across an abyss of time as clear as the water that separates us. Deep beneath the rolling plains of Romania lies a place so alien, so unlike anything else on Earth, that scientists initially doubted their own findings. In 1986, workers digging for a power plant near the Black Sea coast broke through into Muvial Cave, a cavern sealed off from the outside world for 5.5 million years. What they found inside wasn't just darkness, it was an entire ecosystem thriving in conditions that should have been impossible, a lost world where life rewrote the rules of survival. Step into Muvial and you leave behind every law of nature you've ever known. The air is thick with hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide, gases so toxic they'd kill most surface creatures in minutes. There's no sunlight, no plants, no oxygen-rich breeze. Instead, the cave's bizarre food chain runs on chemosynthesis, where bacteria convert poisonous gases into energy, just like organisms near deep-sea vents. These microbes form the base of a web that supports 48 unique species, 33 of which exist nowhere else on the planet. Blind, pale scorpions skitter across damp walls. Translucent spiders weave webs in absolute darkness, waiting for wingless insects that'll never see daylight. Even the water is strange floating mats of bacteria form swirling patterns, like living ink spilled across underground pools. What makes Muvial's creatures so extraordinary isn't just their strangeness, but their isolation. While most caves exchange air, water, or organisms with the surface over time, Muvial's thick layer of clay and its narrow, winding passages kept it hermetically sealed. When the Mediterranean Sea dried up during the Messinian salinity crisis 5 million years ago, the cave's inhabitants were trapped, cut off from evolution's currents. With no genetic flow from the outside world, they adapted in ways that defy textbook biology. Spiders lost their eyes, their bodies shrinking to conserve energy. Insects developed elongated limbs to navigate crevices, their exoskeletons thinning to survive the humid, acidic air. Every organism here is a testament to life's relentless creativity, proof that even in hellish conditions, biology finds a way. But Muvial's greatest gift to science might be the questions it raises. If life can flourish here in a sunless, oxygen-starved prison, what other extreme environments might harbor undiscovered ecosystems? Astronomers point to Muvial when speculating about life beneath Mars' surface or in the subterranean oceans of Europa. Its existence suggests that life isn't a fragile accident, it's a stubborn force capable of exploiting even the most hostile niches. Yet studying this cave comes at a cost. Researchers must suit up like astronauts, breathing through masks to avoid the toxic air. Every expedition risks contaminating the delicate balance. A single introduced bacterium could unravel millions of years of isolated evolution. That's why Muvial remains fiercely guarded, its location semi-secret, its wonders documented by only a handful of scientists. In a way, Muvial feels like a message in a bottle, a glimpse into a parallel Earth where life took a radically different path. It reminds us that our planet's story is far from fully written, and that beneath our feet, in the silent dark, evolution is still dreaming up new possibilities. And who knows how many other sealed caves might hold equally astonishing worlds, waiting for their moment in the light. High in the Altai Mountains, where Siberia's winds howl across the borderlands of Russia, Mongolia, and Kazakhstan, the Earth holds a secret so perfectly preserved it defies belief. Here, in caves locked by permafrost, time didn't just slow, it stopped entirely. When archaeologists began uncovering the tombs of the Pazirik people, they weren't just finding bones. They were meeting the dead face to face, as if stepping into a room where the occupants had merely paused mid-breath. These weren't skeletal remains, they were mummies with skin still supple, tattoos still vivid, and clothing so intact you could count the stitches. For 2,500 years, the ice had cradled them like a careful curator, guarding every detail of a nomadic culture that once thundered across the steppes. What makes these frozen tombs so extraordinary isn't just their age, but the intimacy of their preservation. In most ancient burials, textiles rot, flesh dissolves, and even metal corrodes. But the Pazirik burials, they're snapshots of a single moment. A chieftain's tomb revealed a felt rug adorned with griffins, its colors still rich after centuries. Another held a woman's intricately braided hair, coiled like a crown, her skin etched with tattoos of mythical beasts, each line as sharp as the day the ink was pressed beneath her skin. Even the food meant for the afterlife survived, chunks of cheese, still edible in theory, and horse meat suspended in ice. These weren't just artifacts, they were lives suspended in amber, waiting to be rediscovered. Then there are the chariots, buried alongside the dead. These weren't the war machines of Mediterranean empires, but elaborate, high-wheeled carriages designed for rugged terrain. One, found in the 1990s, was dismantled and stacked like furniture, its wooden axles and woven canopy so well preserved that conservators could trace the tool marks left by the carpenter's adze. The wheels alone tell a story spoked for speed, wide for stability, perfect for traversing the vast grasslands these people called home. But perhaps the most haunting detail is the horses. Sacrificed to accompany their owners into the afterlife, their bodies were arranged with care, manes still knotted with felt ornaments, their final breath frozen in time. Yet the Pazirik's secrets go deeper than objects. Ice also preserved their rituals. In one tomb, archaeologists found a leather pouch filled with cannabis seeds and a small tent-like frame, likely used for inhaling smoke during ceremonies. This wasn't recreational, it was sacred, a bridge between worlds. Another grave held a man whose head had been trepanned, a hole carefully drilled into his skull, possibly to relieve pressure from an injury or to release evil spirits. He'd survived the operation, the bones showing signs of healing before his eventual burial. These aren't just clues about how the Pazirik died, but how they lived, their beliefs, their medicine, their connection to the unseen. What the Altai caves teach us is that cold is more than an absence of heat. It's a guardian of memory. While deserts preserve stone and dry caves safeguard parchment, permafrost cradles the organic, the fragile, the human. A felt boot stitched with sinew, a tattooed hand curled around a mirror, even the last meal placed beside a body, these details don't just inform history, they dissolve the distance between us and the past. Standing before a Pazirik mummy, you're not studying an ancient culture, you're meeting it, and that's the true power of these frozen tombs. They don't just show us how the Pazirik lived. They remind us that time's grip isn't as tight as we think. Most of us know the tragic story of Pompeii, the Roman city frozen in time by Mount Vesuvius's eruption in 79 CE. But just beyond its famous ruins lies a hidden chapter of that disaster, one that few have heard. While Pompeii's ashen streets preserved plaster casts of the fallen, nearby caves under Vesuvius safeguarded something far more delicate, the stuff of everyday life. Here, in tunnels carved by ancient lava flows, volcanic ash didn't just bury objects, it transformed them into eerie, carbonized ghosts of themselves. A loaf of bread left mid-meal, blackened but perfectly intact. A wooden crib, its curved frame still visible, as if waiting for a child who never returned. Even gardens, their leaves and fruit petrified mid-growth, capturing a single moment of Roman domesticity. These caves aren't just tombs, they're time capsules, offering a glimpse into the quiet routines that disaster so abruptly ended. What makes these caves so remarkable is the chemistry of their preservation. When Vesuvius erupted, its pyroclastic surges, superheated waves of gas and ash engulfed the landscape at speeds over 100 miles per hour. Anything organic in their path should have vaporized instantly, but in these underground chambers, the ash settled like a suffocating blanket, sealing off oxygen and creating an airtight tomb. Over centuries, moisture and heat worked like an invisible sculptor, slowly carbonizing wood, food, and fabric. The objects didn't decay, they transformed, their organic molecules replaced by carbon while retaining their original shapes down to the tiniest detail. A basket of eggs became hollow carbon shells. A sack of grain turned into a fragile, ashen silhouette. Its preservation by paradox, the same forces that obliterated life also locked its remnants in eerie stasis. But the real treasure of these caves isn't just the objects, it's the stories they tell. In Pompeii's ruins, we see grand villas and public baths, the markers of a wealthy city. Here we find the mundane, a carpenter's workshop, its tools still stacked against the wall, a kitchen with carbonized figs and fish sauce, hinting at meals interrupted. One cave even held a petrified loaf of bread, stamped with its baker's name and ancient brand logo, frozen in disaster. These aren't just artifacts, they're intimate fragments of lives lived, offering a raw, unfiltered look at Roman domesticity that no history book could replicate. Perhaps most haunting are the gardens. In one underground chamber, archaeologists found the remains of a villa's courtyard, its plants carbonized mid-bloom. The eruption's heat was so intense that it vaporized the leaves' moisture instantly, leaving behind perfect negative imprints in the ash. By pouring plaster into these voids, researchers resurrected an entire garden, herbs, vines, and even the delicate veins of ivy leaves, as if the disaster had pressed them between the pages of an invisible book. These silent, sprouting ghosts remind us that Vesuvius didn't just preserve death, it captured life in full swing, a testament to the ordinary beauty that once thrived in its shadow. The lesson of these caves goes beyond archaeology. They force us to confront a strange truth. Destruction and preservation are often two sides of the same coin. Without Vesuvius's fury, we'd have no bread stamped with a baker's pride, no petrified figs to tell us what Romans snacked on, no gardens frozen mid-growth. The volcano's violence, so devastating in one breath, became history's guardian in the next. And as we peer into these carbonized fragments, we're reminded that time doesn't just pass, it lingers, hides, and sometimes, against all odds, saves. Deep in the heart of Borneo's dense, humid jungles, where the air hums with the calls of unseen creatures, lies a cave system that holds secrets older than the rainforest itself. Naya Cave, a sprawling limestone labyrinth, isn't just a geological wonder, it's a time machine. Step inside, and you're walking the same paths as some of the earliest humans to call Southeast Asia home. Here, beneath towering cavern ceilings, archaeologists unearthed something that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. A skull, weathered by time but unmistakably human, resting alongside stone tools and fragments of charcoal. Nicknamed the Deep Skull, this 40,000-year-old relic didn't just rewrite the story of Borneo, it reshaped our entire understanding of how and when humans spread across the globe. What makes Naya's discoveries so extraordinary is the sheer improbability of their survival. Tropical environments are brutal on bones. Heat, humidity, and acidic soils dissolve skeletal remains within centuries, leaving little for archaeologists to study. But caves like Naya offered a sanctuary, a cool, dry refuge where the past could linger. The Deep Skull, along with other bones and artifacts, lay encased in layers of sediment and bat guano, shielded from the elements that ravaged the jungle outside. It's as if the cave itself decided to keep these treasures safe, waiting for the right moment to reveal them, and what a revelation it was. Before the Deep Skull's discovery in 1958, many scientists assumed Southeast Asia's early populations were relatively recent arrivals. But this ancient cranium told a different story. Its features suggested ties to indigenous Australians and Papuans, hinting at a vast, interconnected migration route that spanned islands and continents. Suddenly, Borneo wasn't just a footnote in human history, it was a crucial waypoint in humanity's grand voyage. The tools found nearby added even more intrigue: primitive axes, scrapers, and evidence of fire use, all pointing to a resourceful, adaptable people who thrived in this challenging environment. But Naya's caves didn't just preserve bones and tools, they safeguarded art. On the walls, handprints and ochre paintings whisper of rituals and storytelling, some dating back over 10,000 years. These aren't random markings, they're deliberate, symbolic, a glimpse into the minds of people who saw these caves as more than shelter. Perhaps they were sacred spaces, places of ceremony or memory. Or maybe they were canvases where early artists sought to capture the world around them. Either way, they remind us that the humans who lived here weren't just surviving, they were thinking, creating, and leaving their mark. The real magic of Naya lies in its ability to connect dots across time and space. The deep skull and its companions aren't isolated curiosities, they're pieces of a puzzle that stretches from Africa to Australia. They suggest that early humans didn't just wander aimlessly, they navigated coastlines, crossed treacherous waters, and adapted to new ecosystems with astonishing speed. And thanks to caves like Naya, we can trace their footsteps, one fragile bone or charcoal stroke at a time. Yet for all we've learned, Naya's caves still guard mysteries. Who were these people, really? How did they live, and what stories did they tell around their fires? Every artifact is a clue, but the full picture remains tantalizingly out of reach. One thing's certain, though, as long as caves like Naya keep their secrets, the story of us, of where we came from and how we got here, will keep unfolding, one discovery at a time. Hidden beneath the rolling plains of central Turkey, where fairy chimneys and rocky spires dot the landscape, lies an underground marvel that redefines what caves can be. The Derinkuyu cave network isn't just a refuge, it's an entire subterranean city, carved by hand over centuries, stretching 18 stories deep into the volcanic rock. Picture this, a labyrinth of tunnels wide enough for 3 people to walk abreast, connecting living quarters, kitchens, wine cellars, and even chapels, all illuminated by flickering oil lamps. At its peak, this underground fortress could shelter 20,000 people, not for days but for months. This wasn't just survival, it was a thriving, organized society that turned the earth itself into a home. What sets Derinkuyu apart isn't just its scale, but its sophistication. While most ancient caves offered basic shelter, Derinkuyu's builders engineered solutions for every challenge of underground life. Massive rolling stone doors, each weighing up to half a ton, could seal off entire sections in minutes, a defense against invaders or wildfires. Ingenious ventilation shafts, some plunging over 200 feet, funneled fresh air to the deepest chambers, while thousands of smaller ducts distributed heat from communal ovens. Even water wasn't left to chance. Carefully carved wells tapped into underground aquifers, ensuring a steady supply even during sieges. Every inch of this city reflects meticulous planning, proving that humans didn't just occupy these caves, they mastered them. But who built this underground marvel? Evidence suggests the earliest tunnels date back to the Hittites around 2000 BCE, but Derinkuyu truly flourished in the Byzantine era, when Christian communities expanded it to escape Arab invasions. Walking through its chambers today, you can still trace their lives in the rock. There are stables with tethering rings carved into walls, proving livestock was kept close for milk and warmth. Grain stores feature circular pits to keep harvests dry, and communal kitchens retain soot stains from centuries of use. Most striking are the chapel's barrel-vaulted spaces with crosses chiseled into alcoves where families would have gathered to pray in the flickering dark. These weren't just functional spaces, they were places of worship, community, and identity. Derinkuyu's real genius, though, lies in its adaptability. Over the centuries, each wave of inhabitants, Phrygians, Persians, early Christians, left their mark, expanding the city deeper or repurposing rooms as needs changed. Some chambers became wineries, their floors stained purple from ancient presses. Others served as schools, with benches carved directly into the stone. During the Ottoman era, secret tunnels connected Derinkuyu to nearby above-ground villages, allowing covert movement during conflicts. This wasn't a static relic, it was a living, evolving space, constantly reshaped by the people who called it home. What makes Derinkuyu so extraordinary is how it flips our understanding of caves upside down. Usually, we think of them as temporary shelters, places to hide until danger passes. But here, generations lived full lives beneath the earth, raising children, brewing wine, and worshipping their gods, all while the world above churned with wars and upheavals. The caves didn't just protect them, they became part of their culture, their safety, their very way of being. And that's the ultimate lesson of Derinkuyu. When humans and caves come together, the result isn't just survival, it's civilization itself, thriving against all odds in the quiet dark. Yet the most haunting question remains: how many other underground cities still lie undiscovered, their stories waiting beneath our feet? Derinkuyu is just one of 200 known subterranean complexes in Cappadocia, and only a fraction have been fully explored. Each one could hold new clues about how our ancestors turned the Earth's hidden spaces into sanctuaries, proving that sometimes the safest place to be isn't on the surface, but deep within it. Just when we thought caves like Lascaux and Altamira had shown us the pinnacle of prehistoric art, the Earth unveiled an even older masterpiece, one so breathtaking it rewrote the story of human creativity. In December 1994, 3 French cavers squeezed through a narrow passage in the Ardèche region and found themselves standing before something extraordinary. The flickering light of their lamps revealed walls covered in hundreds of vivid animal figures, not crude sketches, but dynamic, almost cinematic scenes of lions, rhinos, and horses frozen mid-motion. This was Chauvet Cave, and its charcoal paintings weren't just old, they were ancient, dating back 36,000 years, nearly twice the age of Lascaux's renowned galleries. What sets Chauvet apart isn't just its staggering age, but the sheer sophistication of its art. These weren't simple outlines, they were shaded, layered compositions that used the cave's natural contours to create depth and movement. One panel shows a pride of lions stalking bison, their muscles tensed, their eyes alive with predatory focus. Another captures horses galloping, their manes flowing as if caught in a gust of wind. The artists even used techniques like smudging to create shadows or scraped away charcoal to highlight details, proving that Ice Age painters weren't just doodling, they were masters of their craft. But perhaps the most haunting detail is the footprints. Alongside the paintings, researchers found the preserved tracks of a child, walking barefoot through the cave alongside a wolf. Were they companions? Did the child watch as the artists worked? The prints, frozen in clay, offer a rare, humanizing glimpse into the lives behind the art. Even more astonishing, the cave's entrance collapsed shortly after these works were created, sealing them away in pristine darkness for millennia, as if time itself had paused to protect them. Chauvet's greatest revelation, though, isn't just artistic, it's cognitive. The complexity of these paintings suggests that symbolic thought, storytelling, and perhaps even spiritual beliefs emerged far earlier in human history than we once believed. The rhinos aren't just portraits, they're arranged in deliberate groupings, some seeming to interact or clash. There are abstract symbols, dots, lines, and handprints that recur throughout the cave, hinting at a shared visual language. This wasn't just decoration, it was communication, a way to encode knowledge or myth across generations. Yet Chauvet also carries a sobering lesson about preservation. After its discovery, authorities made an immediate decision: no public access. Unlike Lascaux, which nearly succumbed to mold and bacteria brought in by visitors, Chauvet would remain sealed to all but a handful of researchers. Even today, scientists enter under strict protocols, studying the art through non-invasive scans and replicas. It's a bittersweet paradox. The very act of admiring these wonders risks destroying them. What makes Chauvet so extraordinary is how it collapses time. Standing before these paintings, you're not just looking at art, you're witnessing the moment humanity first grasped the power of imagery, the dawn of our ability to capture the world not just as it is, but as we imagine it to be. And somewhere in other hidden caves, there may be older masterpieces still waiting, their creators' voices echoing silently through the dark. In the stark, sun-baked mountains of northwestern Iran, a mine collapsed over 2,000 years ago, but instead of erasing the past, it froze it in eerie perfection. In 1993, miners digging in the Cherabod salt deposits uncovered something that made their blood run cold. A bearded face staring back at them from the rock, its skin still stretched over bone, its hair and clothing intact. This wasn't just an old skeleton, it was a man, preserved so completely he might have died yesterday. Over the next decade, 5 more of these salt mummies emerged from the tunnels, each one a haunting snapshot of ancient miners who'd met sudden, tragic ends. What makes Cherabod salt men so extraordinary is the science behind their preservation. Salt is nature's perfect embalmer. As it seeped into the bodies over centuries, it drew out moisture while killing bacteria that caused decay. The result, skin that still bears wrinkles and calluses, leather boots stiff but uncrumbled, even fragments of last meals lingering in stomachs. One man's brain tissue survived, shriveled but recognizable, a medical marvel for something over 2 millennia old. Their tools tell an equally vivid story: wooden mallets with worn handles, coiled ropes made of animal sinew, even a leather sack that once held salt. These aren't artifacts behind glass, they're frozen moments, letting us reach across time and touch the calloused hands of people who toiled here when the Persian Empire still ruled these lands. But the salt men aren't just well-preserved curiosities, they're witnesses to a brutal profession. Forensic studies reveal grim details. One miner's skull was shattered, likely by a collapsing tunnel. Another showed signs of repetitive stress injuries from years of swinging picks. Their clothing, woolen tunics and trousers, hints at a workforce dressed for rugged labor, not royalty. These were ordinary people far from the palaces of Persepolis, whose sweat and sacrifice fueled an empire's economy, and their deaths weren't isolated accidents. The positioning of the bodies suggests multiple cave-ins, painting Cherabod as a death trap where workers risked everything for the white gold that seasoned food, preserved meat, and paid soldiers. Perhaps the most poignant discovery was the youngest salt man, a teenager, his bones still growing when the mine crushed him. Beside him lay a silver earring, its delicate craftsmanship at odds with the rough world of mining. Was it a family heirloom, a lover's gift? That tiny, personal detail cuts through the centuries, reminding us that these weren't just laborers, they were sons, brothers, men with stories cut short. Cherabod's caves did more than preserve bodies, they safeguarded an entire way of life. Salt crystals clinging to the men's tools matched deposits from distant mines, proving trade networks spanned hundreds of miles. Pollen grains trapped in their clothing revealed what grew in the region before climate turned it barren. Even their gut bacteria, distinct from modern strains, offers clues about ancient diets and health. Like Pompeii's ash or peat bogs tannins, the salt didn't just mummify, it archived, gifting us a database of antiquity written in skin, hair, and bone. Yet for all we've learned, the mine guards its secrets fiercely. Why were some men found with ropes still coiled around their limbs? Did they die trying to rescue comrades? And why, in a mine that surely claimed more lives, have only a handful of bodies emerged? The earth keeps its answers, leaving us to wonder how many other salt men still lie entombed, waiting for a pickaxe or erosion to set them free. Charabod's lesson is hauntingly clear. Caves don't just shelter the past, they can transform it, turning tragedy into time capsules. These miners never imagined their deaths would become a window for the future. But thanks to salt's alchemy, their struggles, their tools, even their faces endure, whispering across millennia that history isn't just about kings and conquests, it's carved into the hands of those who labored in the dark. Hidden deep within the jagged cliffs of India's Sahyadri Mountains, the Ajanta caves hold a secret so radiant it defies the passage of time. Carved by hand into the volcanic rock over 2,000 years ago, these 30 caves aren't just hollows in the stone, they're a symphony of color and devotion, where every wall whispers ancient prayers in pigment and plaster. Imagine standing in the dim glow of an oil lamp as your eyes adjust to the walls around you, suddenly alive with scenes of emerald forests and golden palaces, their colors so vivid they seem to pulse in the flickering light. This is where art and spirituality fused into something timeless, where monks and artists turned caves into canvases for the divine. What makes Ajanta's survival so miraculous isn't just its age, but the forces it endured. Monsoon rains batter this region for months each year, their downpours capable of eroding stone. Yet the cave's strategic placement, tucked into a horseshoe-shaped gorge, shielded them like a natural fortress. The overhanging cliffs diverted rainwater, while the mineral-rich pigments ground from lapis lazuli, cinnabar, and malachite bonded chemically with the plaster, resisting fading even as dynasties rose and fell outside. When British officer John Smith stumbled upon them in 1819 while hunting tigers, the murals had been sealed in darkness for nearly 1,000 years, their brilliance preserved like flowers pressed between the pages of a forgotten book. But Ajanta's true magic lies in its storytelling. These aren't random decorations, they're visual scriptures, illustrating the Jataka tales, stories of Buddha's past lives as prince, merchant, or even hare. In one panel, a blue-skinned Buddha kneels to offer his own flesh to feed a starving tigress and her cubs, his face serene amidst the horror. In another, celestial nymphs float on lotus blossoms, their almond eyes and fluid poses echoing a dance that's been silent for centuries. The artists didn't just paint, they orchestrated light and shadow, using angled corridors to cast divine glow upon key scenes at dawn or dusk, turning the caves into sacred theaters where stone came alive. The craftsmanship here rewrites what we thought possible in antiquity. Artists mixed plaster with rice husks and animal hair to prevent cracking, then polished surfaces with agate stones until they gleamed like mirrors. They painted wet frescoes in layers, blending natural gums with pigments to create textures, velvet robes, glinting jewelry, even the delicate transparency of a tear on a cheek. Some caves feature sculptures so finely detailed you can trace the individual beads of a necklace or the wrinkles on a sage's forehead, all carved directly into the living rock. This wasn't folk art, it was a masterclass in devotion where every stroke was an act of meditation. Ajanta's legacy isn't just in its beauty, but in its purpose. These caves were more than monasteries, they were universities of the spirit. Pilgrims and scholars would have traveled for months to study here, their footsteps echoing through halls where murals served as teaching tools for Buddhist philosophy. The cave's very layout reflects this: prayer halls with vaulted ceilings designed to amplify chanting, cells for meditation arranged to catch cooling breezes, and courtyards where monks debated under the stars. Even the silence here feels intentional, the rock-absorbing sound to create a cocoon of contemplation. Yet for all its grandeur, Ajanta carries a quiet humility. Unlike Europe's cathedrals built to awe the masses, these caves were designed to turn the gaze inward. The artists left no signatures, no records of patronage, just the work itself, an offering to the eternal. Today, as sunlight filters through the gorge and dances across murals of compassion and sacrifice, Ajanta's message endures: that art, when married to devotion, can outlast empires, weather monsoons, and keep the whispers of the enlightened alive in the dark. And somewhere, in other hidden grottos, there may be more such treasures still waiting, their colors bright beneath the dust of centuries. There's a place where fire and ice collide, where glaciers born from ancient snowfall hide caves that shimmer like shattered sapphires. In the shadow of Iceland's Esvineyfellsjökull glacier, winter transforms the ice into a cathedral of light, a labyrinth of tunnels with walls so clear and blue they seem to glow from within. Step inside and you're walking through frozen rivers, their ceilings arching like the ribs of some great crystalline beast. But here's the catch: these caves are alive. Unlike stone caverns that stand unchanged for millennia, Esvineyfellsjökull's ice caves are fleeting masterpieces, sculpted anew each year by the glacier's slow, relentless dance. One winter's tunnel might collapse by spring. A ceiling that gleamed cobalt under last year's sun could vanish without a trace. This is beauty on borrowed time, a reminder that not all time capsules are built to last. What makes these caves so extraordinary isn't just their otherworldly hues, but the stories trapped in their ice. Every layer of a glacier is a page in Earth's diary, compacted over centuries. Drill into Esvineyfellsjökull's depths, and you'll find air bubbles no bigger than a grain of sand, tiny prisons holding atmosphere from the Viking Age. When scientists analyze these bubbles, they're sniffing the very air Leif Erikson breathed, measuring how carbon dioxide levels have shifted since longships ruled the North Atlantic. The ice doesn't just preserve climate data, it captures moments. A volcanic eruption from the year 900 might leave behind a streak of ash, while a particularly snowy medieval winter shows up as a dense band of white. These caves aren't just pretty, they're archives, and their shelves are melting. Yet the real magic lies in their impermanence. Unlike the static caves of limestone or lava, Esvineyfellsjökull's tunnels are born from movement. As the glacier inches forward, sometimes as slowly as a meter per year, meltwater carves out chambers that pulse and shift with the seasons. Summer's warmth opens new passages, winter's freeze seals others shut. Explorers might return to a cave they photographed months earlier, only to find its walls slumped, its ceiling collapsed, its blue glow replaced by rubble. It's a humbling lesson. Some wonders won't wait for us. Scientists racing to study these caves before they vanish have likened it to reading a book while someone slowly burns the pages. But perhaps that's what makes them so precious. In a world where we're used to monuments standing for centuries, Esvineyfellsjökull's caves teach us to cherish the ephemeral. Their walls, streaked with ash from long-cooled volcanoes, remind us that even glaciers seemingly eternal are as fleeting as the bubbles of ancient air they preserve. For now, though, they remain. On a winter morning, when sunlight filters through the ice, the caves ignite in a blue so vivid it feels like walking through the heart of a gemstone. And for those lucky enough to witness it, that glow isn't just light, it's time itself, frozen for a moment before it slips away. Off the rugged Mediterranean coast of France, where turquoise waves crash against limestone cliffs, lies a cave whose very existence defies logic. The entrance to Kasker Cave sits 120 feet below the surface, a dark mouth swallowing the sea, but climb through its flooded throat, and you'll emerge into an air pocket frozen in time. Here, safe from the water's reach, the walls blaze with the artistry of Ice Age hunters who once walked here on dry land. Hand stencils, their fingers splayed like living shadows, mingle with galloping horses and aurochs drawn in charcoal and ochre. These aren't just paintings, they're messages in a bottle, tossed across 17,000 years by people who never imagined their world would drown. What makes Kasker so extraordinary isn't just its art, it's the irony of its preservation. When the artists worked here, sea levels were 300 feet lower. They'd have entered through a sunlit valley, not a submerged tunnel. But as glaciers melted at the end of the Ice Age, rising waters sealed the cave's original entrance, creating a natural lock that kept vandals and looters out for millennia. The same force that erased the landscape climate change became the cave's accidental guardian. Even the salt water now lapping at the lower chambers can't reach the upper galleries, where the air remains dry enough to protect pigments untouched since the last ice sheet retreated. The cave's discovery reads like a thriller. In 1985, professional diver Henry Kasker, whose name the cave now bears, was exploring a rocky outcrop near Marseille when he noticed an unnaturally smooth passage leading upward. Squeezing through, he surfaced into darkness, and when his flashlight flickered to life, it illuminated handprints that hadn't felt sunlight since the Stone Age. Scientists later confirmed the staggering age of the artwork, including a haunting depiction of a man with seals, perhaps a shaman or hunter, whose body seems to dissolve into the rock. But the most chilling detail, dozens of paintings lie underwater now, their colors slowly dissolving in the brine. The same rising seas that hid Kasker for so long are now eating away at its lower chambers, a grim preview of what awaits other coastal heritage sites. Kasker's greatest lesson might be its urgency. As melting ice and rising oceans threaten thousands of undiscovered caves and settlements worldwide, this cave is both a time capsule and a warning. Archaeologists racing to document its art use 3D scanners and photogrammetry, knowing full well that some chambers may vanish before they're fully studied. And Kasker isn't alone. From Native American shell mounds in Florida to Neolithic villages off Denmark's coast, climate change isn't just reshaping our future, it's erasing our past, one submerged site at a time. Yet there's hope in how we respond. Replicas of Kasker's most fragile art now let the public experience its wonders without accelerating their decay, while sonar mapping reveals hidden passages still waiting to be explored. The cave reminds us that while the earth giveth preserving these masterpieces in their watery vault, it also taketh away, and in that tension lies a challenge, to listen while we still can, to the whispers of a world that's slipping beneath the waves. High on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, where the mountain air hums with the whispers of old gods, lies a cavern that once held the ancient world in thrall. The Coracian cave, hidden in the shadows of Delphi's sacred sanctuary, wasn't just a hollow in the rock, it was a threshold to the divine. Unlike the treasure-laden caves of forgotten kings or the ice-bound tombs of nomadic chiefs, this place traded in something far more elusive: prophecy. Pilgrims from across the Mediterranean would climb the steep path, hearts pounding, hoping to stand where the earth itself seemed to speak. And in the flickering torchlight, amid the cave's strange echoes and drifting vapors, they believed they could hear the future. What made the Coracian cave so extraordinary wasn't just its location near the famed Oracle of Delphi. It was the uncanny forces at work inside. modern studies reveal that the cavern sits atop intersecting fault lines, which seep traces of ethylene gas, a compound known to induce trance-like states. Combine that with the cave's natural acoustics, whispers bouncing off curved walls into eerie, distorted murmurs, and you have a recipe for revelation. Imagine a priestess breathing in those vapors, her senses swimming, while the whispers of attendants and the groan of the earth swirled around her. Was it any wonder the ancients believed the gods spoke here? Yet the cave's true power lay in its ambiguity. Unlike an artifact you could hold or a painting you could see, the Coracian cave dealt in intangibles, a shiver down the spine, a half-heard whisper, the weight of expectation pressing on the chest. This was no museum of objects, but a theater of the mind, where geology and human longing collided. The rituals performed here, whether burning barley cakes to appease spirits or drinking from the sacred spring, weren't just superstition. They were attempts to make sense of the unseen forces that seemed to pulse through the rock itself. The cave's legacy lingers in the questions it forces us to ask. Were the prophecies mere hallucination, or did the cave's environment unlock some deeper intuition in those who entered? Perhaps it didn't matter. What shaped history wasn't whether the visions were real, but that thousands, from farmers to kings, acted as if they were. Armies marched, treaties were signed, and fortunes rose or fell based on words spoken in this very chamber. The Coracian cave reminds us that sometimes the most powerful places aren't those that preserve the past, but those that shape what comes next. And so the cave endures, not as a relic but as a mirror. It reflects back our timeless hunger to find meaning in the unknown, to seek answers from the dark. Even now, standing in its quiet depths, you can almost feel the weight of all those whispered prayers, still clinging to the stone like the faintest breath of the divine. Beneath the lush rainforests and smoldering volcanoes of Hawaii's Big Island, a hidden world stretches for miles, a labyrinth of tunnels so vast it could swallow entire cities. Kazumura Cave, the longest lava tube on Earth, isn't just a geological wonder, it's a living archive of fire and time. Picture this: 40 miles of smooth, undulating passageways, their walls polished like glass by rivers of molten rock that once roared through them at 2,000 degrees. Some sections soar as tall as cathedrals, while others twist into narrow corridors where the ceiling brushes your shoulders. But what makes Kazumura extraordinary isn't just its size, it's the stories etched into every curve of its blackened walls. These tunnels are nature's ledger, recording centuries of volcanic tantrums in intricate detail. Walk through Kazumura and you're stepping through layers of history. Ropey lava formations called Paho, hotel of slow, syrupy flows, while jagged R-rock speaks of violent eruptions. Mineral stalactites, some as delicate as lace, others thick as tree trunks, drip from the ceiling, formed not by water but by volcanic gases seeping through the rock over centuries. Even the cave's floor holds clues. Ripple marks frozen in stone reveal the speed and direction of ancient lava rivers, while sudden drops mark where the molten rock drained away like a bathtub emptying. This isn't just a cave, it's a time machine offering a first-hand look at the island's fiery birth. Yet Kazumura's significance goes far beyond geology. For native Hawaiians, these caves were never just empty tunnels. They were wahai pana, sacred spaces woven into the fabric of cultural memory. Petroglyphs hidden in shadowed alcoves depict canoe voyages and ancestral spirits, their meanings passed down through chants rather than written words. Some chambers served as temporary shelters during eruptions, their floors still bearing traces of ancient hearths. Others were sites of ceremony, where the echoes of chants might still linger in the damp air. The cave even appears in the Peel cycle, the epic tales of the volcano goddess, who is said to have forged these tubes as pathways between her subterranean home and the fiery surface world. What makes Kazumura unique is how it bridges the scientific and the spiritual. Modern researchers use laser mapping to document its chambers, while traditional practitioners still leave offerings of flowers or prayer at its entrances. The cave isn't a relic, it's a living space where cutting-edge volcanology walks hand in hand with centuries-old reverence. And as lava continues to flow on the surface above, Kazumura quietly grows, adding new chapters to a story that began long before humans set foot on these islands. Standing in the cave's echoing darkness, you can almost feel the pulse of the earth beneath your feet. The same forces that built these tunnels still shape Hawaii today, a reminder that the land is never truly still. Kazumura doesn't just preserve the past, it whispers of futures still unfolding, where fire and stone will keep writing their saga long after we're gone. And somewhere in the untouched depths of other lava tubes, new passages may already be forming, waiting for their turn to tell their tales. In the rugged Zagros Mountains of northern Iraq, a cave cradled secrets that would forever change how we see our ancient cousins. Shanidar Cave, its mouth staring out across the valleys like a watchful eye, held more than just bones, it held a revolution in understanding. When archaeologist Ralph Solke first brushed away the dust from Neanderthal remains here in the 1950s, he uncovered something startling. Clusters of flower pollen, so dense and deliberate they couldn't have blown in by chance. These weren't just skeletons, they were graves, carefully arranged with blossoms like yellow yarrow and hollyhock, their medicinal and symbolic meanings echoing across 50,000 years. What makes Shanidar's discovery so extraordinary isn't just the presence of flowers, it's what they imply. For decades, Neanderthals had been dismissed as hunched, grunting brutes, barely more sophisticated than the animals they hunted. But here was evidence of something profound: ritual, reverence, perhaps even grief. One skeleton, dubbed Shanidar IV, lay curled as if in sleep, surrounded by pollen from plants known for their healing properties. Was this a shaman honored with herbs for the afterlife? A loved one laid to rest with blooms to ease their journey? The cave's silent testimony shattered stereotypes, painting Neanderthals not as mindless cavemen, but as beings who cared for their sick, buried their dead, and maybe even pondered the mysteries of death itself. Yet Shanidar's gifts go far beyond a single burial. The cave's floor is a geological layer cake, its sediments stacking like pages in a book that spans over 100,000 years. Each stratum holds clues to a different chapter of life: charcoal from ancient hearths, flint tools sharpened by hands long turned to dust, even the bones of animals that wandered in and never left. In one layer, the skeleton of an older male, Shanidar I, shows signs of a hard life: a crushed eye socket, a withered arm, and a limp that would have made hunting impossible. But here's the twist: he lived for years with these injuries. Someone, maybe his family, his tribe, had fed him, protected him, valued him despite his weaknesses. In a world where survival was a daily struggle, that's not just biology, it's humanity. The cave's stratigraphy does more than tell stories, it anchors them in time. Unlike scattered fossils, Shanidar's layers provide a continuous record, letting scientists trace how tools evolved, how diets shifted with climate, even how Neanderthals might have interacted with the first modern humans to wander into their territory. One poignant discovery, a fragment of polished stone too fine for practical use, found near a child's remains. A toy, a talisman, whatever its purpose, it whispers of childhoods not so different from our own. Shanidar's ultimate lesson isn't just about Neanderthals, it's about us. Their DNA lingers in many of our genes, proof that our ancestors didn't just replace them. They loved them, had children with them, absorbed their legacy into our own. Standing in the cave today, where sunlight slants across the same ledges where they once sheltered, it's impossible not to feel the weight of that connection. These weren't primitive dead ends in evolution's road. They were artists, healers, mourners, people who, like us, sought meaning in the dark. And thanks to Shanidar's steadfast guardianship, their voices, though silent, still speak. Beneath the emerald jungles of Palawan in the Philippines, where sunlight barely penetrates the thick canopy, lies a river that defies all expectations. It flows not across the land, but through it. The Puerto Princesa underground river carves a winding, 8-kilometer path through the heart of a limestone mountain, its waters shimmering in the glow of bioluminescent fungi like liquid starlight. This isn't just a cave with a stream. It's a fully functioning subterranean ecosystem where the rules of life bend to accommodate eternal night. Bats by the thousands flit through cathedral-like chambers, their droppings sustaining blind crabs and albino insects that will never know daylight. Even the air feels alive here, thick with the mineral scent of dripping water and the electric hum of creatures tuned to frequencies humans can't hear. What makes this river so extraordinary isn't just its scale, it's how it blurs the line between geology and biology. The cave's walls, sculpted by acidic water dissolving limestone over millions of years, are studded with fossils of ancient corals and mollusks, remnants of a time when this entire region lay submerged beneath prehistoric seas. But look closer and you'll see the stone isn't static. Stalactites drip like frozen waterfalls, some growing less than a centimeter every century. Their slow motion dance a testament to patience beyond human comprehension. Meanwhile, microbial colonies paint the walls in streaks of pink and green. Their metabolisms adapted to feast on rock itself, transforming minerals into energy in a process so alien it fascinates astrobiologists studying potential life on other worlds. The river's true marvel, though, is its adaptability. Unlike most caves sealed and unchanging, this one breathes with the seasons. During monsoons, floodwaters surge through passages, reshaping chambers and depositing nutrients that fuel the ecosystem. In drier months, the water retreats, revealing hidden alcoves where rare species like the Palawan bearded pig come to lick salt from the walls. Even the cave's famous twilight zone, where sunlight filters weakly through sinkholes, hosts ferns and palms that evolved to thrive in perpetual dusk, their leaves broader and darker than their sun-drenched cousins. This isn't a relic frozen in time, it's a living laboratory, demonstrating how life and landscape co-evolve in real time. For scientists, the river offers a rare chance to study isolation's creative power. Fish here have lost their pigmentation and eyesight, their bodies streamlined for navigating pitch-black currents. Spiders weave webs with silk stronger than steel, an adaptation to catch prey in nutrient-scarce darkness. Even the bacteria defy expectations, with some species capable of breaking down toxic compounds that would kill surface-dwelling microbes. Each discovery peels back another layer of nature's ingenuity, proving that darkness isn't a barrier, it's a catalyst for innovation. Yet the cave's fragility humbles even the most seasoned explorers. A single misplaced footstep can crush formations that took millennia to grow, while introduced pollutants could unravel food webs honed over eons. UNESCO designation as a World Heritage Site helps, but protection requires constant vigilance against deforestation upslope, against invasive species hitching rides on tourist boats, against the creeping threat of climate change altering rainfall patterns. The river's survival hinges on balance, a reminder that the most resilient ecosystems are often the most delicate. Standing in the echoing darkness, with water whispering against the hull of a paddleboat and unseen wings brushing past, it's impossible not to feel like a guest in someone else's dream. This cave doesn't just hold fossils or formations, it cradles an entire alternate reality, one that flourished long before humans arrived and will likely outlast us. And as the river flows eternally onward, carving new passages inch by inch, it carries with it a silent promise that deep beneath our feet, in places we've yet to discover, the planet is still dreaming up new wonders. Deep in the jungles of Mexico's Huasteca region, where mist curls around limestone cliffs like smoke, there's a hole in the earth so vast it could swallow the Statue of Liberty whole. The Cave of the Swallows, Sótano de las Golondrinas, plunges nearly 1,200 feet straight down, its walls so sheer that sunlight only graces the bottom for a few fleeting minutes each day. For centuries, this natural abyss was known only to the thousands of swifts and parrots that nest in its crevices, their dizzying spirals at dawn making the air itself seem alive. But hidden in the perpetual twilight of its floor lay a surprise no one expected, a trove of pre-Columbian artifacts, untouched by time or thieves, simply because no one could reach them. The irony is almost poetic. The same terrifying depth that made Sótano de las Golondrinas a death trap for the unwary became its greatest protector. While looters ransacked surface ruins and shallow caves across Mesoamerica, these objects, ceramic shards, carved jade beads, and fragments of woven rope, slept undisturbed in the gloom. Archaeologists believe they were offerings, perhaps tossed or lowered into the pit by ancient Totonac or Huastec people who saw the cave as a portal to the underworld. Without ropes or modern climbing gear, retrieving them would have been impossible. So they waited, silent and forgotten, until the 20th century when daredevil cavers rappelling into the abyss noticed something glinting in their headlamps, not just rocks but history. What makes these artifacts so remarkable isn't just their age dating back over 1,000 years, but the stories their preservation tells, that rope fragment. Its fibers retain traces of dye, hinting at a vibrant trade in colors lost to time. The jade beads microscopic where patterns suggest it was sewn onto a garment, likely worn by someone of importance before being surrendered to the depths. Even the pottery shards, though broken, bear fingerprints pressed into the clay by their makers, a tactile connection across centuries. Normally, organic materials like rope or textiles vanish within decades in the tropics, but the cave's constant humidity and lack of sunlight created a microenvironment where decay slowed to a crawl. Modern explorers now descend with GoPros and 3D scanners, documenting artifacts in situ before carefully extracting the most fragile for study. It's a delicate dance between discovery and preservation. Some objects remain exactly where they were found, protected by the cave's natural defenses. Others, like a miraculously intact wooden figurine wrapped in vine, now reside in climate-controlled museums, their details revealing artistic styles previously unknown to scholars. Each find chips away at the mystery of why these items were offered here. Were they gifts to gods, sacrifices to ensure rain or fertility, or perhaps markers of some rite of passage, thrown into the dark as a test of faith or courage? But Sótano de las Golondrinas isn't just a time capsule. It's a lesson in accidental archaeology. Across the globe, from sinkholes in the Yucatán to ice caves in the Alps, extreme environments have inadvertently safeguarded treasures by making them inaccessible. The cave forces us to reconsider what remote really means. In an age where satellites map every inch of the planet, there are still places where history hides in plain sight, shielded not by locks or laws, but by the sheer audacity of nature's architecture. And as climbers continue to inch deeper into the world's most forbidding caverns, who knows what other forgotten offerings might emerge from the dark, whispering secrets we've only just begun to hear. There's a place in South Africa where the rocks themselves seem to whisper the secrets of our species. The Sterkfontein Caves, a labyrinth of limestone chambers northwest of Johannesburg, don't just hold fossils, they cradle the very origins of humanity. Over 2 million years ago, these winding passages became accidental graves for creatures caught in sinkholes or dragged in by predators, their bones sinking into sediment rich with calcium carbonate. But here's the miracle. That same mineral-rich environment, alkaline as baking soda, acted like nature's embalming fluid, transforming fragile skeletons into stone over epochs. While most fossils from this era crumbled to dust, Sterkfontein's caves held onto them with the tenacity of a time capsule buried deep in the earth. The star of this ancient gallery is Mrs. Ples, the affectionate nickname for a nearly intact Australopithecus skull discovered in 1947. With her small brain case and protruding jaw, she might not look like much at first glance until you realize she's a direct ancestor, a bridge between apes and humans. Her skull, painstakingly freed from its rocky tomb, proved that walking upright evolved long before big brains, rewriting textbooks on human evolution. But Mrs. Ples isn't alone. Sterkfontein has yielded over a third of all known Australopithecus fossils, including Littlefoot, a near-complete skeleton whose bones tell a tragic story of a fall into the caves, followed by careful burial in sediment. These aren't scattered fragments, they're chapters in a saga written in calcium and time. What makes Sterkfontein revolutionary isn't just the fossils themselves, but the context they provide. Unlike isolated finds elsewhere, the cave's layered deposits act like a geological calendar, letting scientists trace evolutionary changes across hundreds of thousands of years. In one stratum, ape-like jaws dominate. Higher up, teeth grow smaller, hinting at dietary shifts as grasslands replaced forests. Even the cave's imperfections, collapsed chambers mixing older and newer fossils, become clues, challenging researchers to untangle timelines like detectives solving a prehistoric cold case. But Sterkfontein's greatest gift might be the questions it forces us to ask. Why did these early hominins frequent such dangerous caves? Were they seeking shelter, or did the dark chambers hold some symbolic significance? And how many other Mrs. Ples might still lie hidden in uncharted passages? Every scoop of sediment holds potential: a tooth, a finger bone, a skull fragment waiting to nudge the story of us in some unexpected direction. For all its scientific importance, there's something deeply humbling about standing in these caves. The same stalactites that drip today watched as our ancestors took their first wobbly steps toward humanity. The rocks here don't just preserve bones, they hold the echoes of a journey that led, against all odds, to us. And as long as the caves keep their secrets, that story is still being written, one fossil, one discovery at a time. High on the windswept plateaus of Argentine Patagonia, where the landscape stretches barren and endless, a series of unassuming caves guard a chromatic miracle. These hollows in the rock, shielded from the relentless southern winds, have cradled bursts of color for over 9,000 years, vibrant handprints pressed onto stone, ochre-splashed silhouettes of guanacos mid-gallop, and geometric patterns that pulse with hidden meaning. While the languages of their creators vanished long ago, these pigments endure, whispering in hues that refuse to fade. What makes these caves extraordinary isn't just the age of the paintings, but the alchemy of their survival. The artists worked with a palette forged from the earth itself, iron-rich hematite for deep reds, manganese for Inkai blacks, and kaolin clay for chalky whites. They mixed these minerals with binders like animal fat or plant sap, then applied them to walls polished smooth by ancient hands. In most environments, such organic paints would flake away within centuries, but Patagonia's caves offered sanctuary. Their stable humidity prevented cracking, while the lack of direct sunlight shielded pigments from bleaching. Even the cave's mineral-rich drips conspired to preserve the art, sealing images beneath a translucent glaze of calcite like nature's own varnish. Yet these paintings are more than just pretty artifacts, they're maps to a lost world. The guanacos, camelid ancestors of today's llamas, appear in herds or solitary, some pierced with lines that might represent spears or spiritual energy. Their positions often align with real migration routes outside the caves, suggesting these walls doubled as hunting manuals or sacred atlases. Even the handprints tell stories. Some are small, likely belonging to children, their fingers splayed in stencils created by blowing pigment around them. Were these part of initiation rites? Family signatures, the caves won't say, but their silence is a provocation, daring us to imagine the lives behind each smudge of color. The true revelation lies in the details modern technology uncovers. Using hyperspectral imaging, researchers have detected layers of paintings beneath visible ones, ghostly earlier compositions peeking through. In one cave, a guanaco's outline hides 3 older versions, each slightly different, as if the artist kept refining their vision across generations. Elsewhere, fingerprints preserved in the pigment reveal the pressure and angle of the painter's touch, letting us virtually grasp hands with a Stone Age creator. It's as if the cave saved not just art, but the very motions of its making, the sweep of a brush, the spray of pigment from pursed lips, the pause before a final stroke. But Patagonia's caves harbor a melancholy truth too. Many motifs, like the sunburst patterns found near cave mouths, mirror designs used by the region's last indigenous groups before European contact, suggesting an unbroken artistic tradition spanning millennia. Yet the meanings behind these symbols died with their interpreters, leaving us with beauty we can admire but never fully decipher. The colors remain bright, but the stories they were meant to tell have dissolved into the wind. Still, there's hope in the science now breathing life back into these silent narratives. By analyzing pigment samples, archaeologists trace trade routes. Some minerals came from over 300 miles away, proof of vast prehistoric exchange networks. DNA extracted from paint residues might one day identify the animals whose blood or fat bound the colors, revealing which species were sacred or staple. And as climate change threatens to alter cave environments, digital preservation ensures these masterpieces won't fade a second time. Standing before these painted walls today, you're not just looking at art, you're witnessing resilience. The same winds that scoured Patagonia's plains to dust couldn't erase these strokes of red and black. The hands that painted them are dust now, but their colors still sing, defiantly bright against the relentless march of centuries. And in that defiance lies a promise that humanity's urge to create, to mark our presence, is as enduring as the stone itself. Beneath Greenland's vast ice sheets, where glaciers have gripped the land for centuries, a silent thaw is uncovering secrets from an era when Norse explorers dared to settle this unforgiving edge of the world. As climate change peels back layers of ice like pages in a forgotten book, caves once sealed by frost are yielding treasures that rewrite the Viking saga. Imagine stumbling upon a woolen tunic, its weave still tight after 1,000 years, or a rust-streaked iron knife lying where it was dropped. Artifacts so perfectly preserved they seem to whisper their stories directly to us. These aren't just relics, they're frozen fragments of daily life, preserved with a clarity that even the most meticulously excavated European settlements rarely offer. The real magic lies in the ice's ruthless selectivity. Unlike soil, which slowly breaks down organic matter, glaciers act as deep freeze vaults, stopping time in its tracks. A leather shoe retains the shape of its owner's foot, A wooden butter churn still smells faintly of dairy. Even strands of hair clinging to a comb hold DNA that traces ancestry back to Scandinavia's fjords. These details transform vague historical accounts into intimate snapshots, proof that Norse settlers didn't just endure Greenland's harsh climate. They adapted, crafting ingenious solutions like turf-walled homes and layered woolens to survive winters that could freeze iron. Yet the most startling revelations come from what these objects don't show. Absent are signs of sudden catastrophe, no weapons scattered in battle, no hoards of valuables hidden in panic. Instead, the artifacts suggest gradual abandonment, as if families packed what they could and left quietly. This paints a haunting picture, not of Vikings vanquished by ice, but of a society pushed to its limits by shifting trade routes, dwindling resources, and a cooling climate echoes of challenges we face today. The cave's treasures also rewrite the timeline of Norse resilience. Radiocarbon dating of twigs from bedding material reveals settlements persisted decades longer than records suggested, their inhabitants clinging to Greenland even as Europe forgot them. And then there are the quieter finds: a child's toy carved from walrus ivory, a charred barley seed hinting at failed harvests, each one a stroke on a larger canvas of adaptation and loss. But urgency shadows these discoveries. As melting accelerates, artifacts emerge only to crumble within days when exposed to air. Archaeologists race against time, scooping up relics before sun and bacteria erase them. It's a bitter paradox. The same warming that unveils these stories also threatens to erase them, reminding us that climate change isn't just shaping our future, it's rewriting our past. And in Greenland's ice caves, that past whispers a warning. Civilizations rise and fall with the climate's whims, leaving behind only what the Earth chooses to remember. High on the cliffs of Crete, where the Aegean wind whistles through narrow fissures, caves guard one of antiquity's most tantalizing puzzles. These hollows in the rock, undisturbed for 3.5 millennia, cradle clay tablets and seal stones etched with Linear a script as elegant as it is enigmatic. Picture the frustration of modern linguists. Here are symbols as crisp as the day they were pressed into wet clay, their curves and lines clearly deliberate, yet their meaning slips through our fingers like smoke. Unlike its cousin Linear B, deciphered in the 1950s to reveal early Greek inventories and lists, Linear A remains stubbornly silent. The very caves that preserved these inscriptions so perfectly now seem to mock us, their cool, dry air having safeguarded a riddle that even artificial intelligence and supercomputers can't crack. What makes these caves extraordinary isn't just the artifacts they hold, but the paradox they represent. The Minoans, Europe's first advanced civilization, built palaces with plumbing and painted frescoes of leaping dolphins, yet they left no Rosetta Stone to bridge the gap between their symbols and our understanding. The tablets themselves offer clues, lists of commodities like grain and olives, hinted at by recurring signs alongside numerals. But without a bilingual inscription or a living descendant language, each attempt at translation becomes guesswork. Some scholars see syllabic patterns, others insist it's purely logographic. The debate rages on, fueled by the maddening perfection of the preservation. These aren't faded scratches on crumbling parchment, they're crisp marks in unfired clay, as if the scribe just stepped away for a moment, yet the cave's protection extends beyond the physical. The very layout of these chambers suggests they were more than storage. Some sit near sacred springs, others align with solstice sunlight, hinting at ritual use. Could the inscriptions be prayers, traders' contracts, royal decrees? The symbols themselves tantalize with familiarity. A figure that could be a ship or a temple, a looping sign resembling a bull's horn, but their context is a locked door without a key. Even the order in which they were found tells a story. tablets near cave entrances often bear different markings from those deep inside, as if proximity to sunlight or dampness dictated their purpose. The greatest irony is that the cave's impeccable preservation might be the very thing keeping Linea's secrets safe. Had these tablets been exposed to the elements, they might have eroded just enough to reveal layers beneath, crossed out words, palimpsests, anything to show how the language evolved. Instead, they're pristine, their silence unbroken. Modern techniques like 3D scanning and spectral imaging have mapped every groove, yet the breakthrough hasn't come. It's as if the Minoans, master traders who connected Egypt to Sardinia, chose this one thing to withhold from the future. But here's the haunting possibility. Somewhere in Crete's labyrinthine cave systems, there might still lie a tablet that changes everything. A bilingual inscription, a king's name, a phrase repeated in a known language. Until then, Linear remains a whisper from the dark, a reminder that some doors, once closed, resist every modern tool we throw at them. And perhaps that's as it should be, a testament to the past's right to keep its mysteries, even as we keep reaching for the light. The tools we use to explore caves today would seem like pure magic to the archaeologists of just a generation ago. Picture this: a drone no bigger than your palm hovers in a cavern's pitch-black chamber, its LiDAR laser pulsing silently, mapping every crevice in 3 dimensions with millimeter precision. Meanwhile, an AI algorithm cross-references newly discovered cave art with a global database, instantly flagging similarities to symbols found 7,000 miles away. And somewhere in the network's depths, a micro-robot smaller than a coin threads through a passage too narrow for human explorers, its microscopic camera transmitting images of mineral formations untouched for millennia. This isn't science fiction, it's the cutting edge of speleology, where technology is peeling back layers of the Earth's secrets faster than we ever thought possible. But here's the humbling truth: for all our advancements, we've barely scratched the surface. Literally, less than 30% of Earth's estimated caves have been documented, let alone thoroughly studied. That means every time a researcher lowers a drone into a new shaft or deploys a robotic crawler into a subterranean crack, they might be the first human or machine to lay eyes on what's hidden there. Imagine the possibilities: undiscovered chambers filled with prehistoric art, fossils of unknown species, even evidence of lost civilizations. Some caves in the Amazon, sealed by dense jungle, are only now being detected by satellite-mounted LiDAR, revealing vast networks that indigenous peoples might have used for centuries without outsiders knowing. The real game changer: preservation through digitization. In France's Lascaux cave, where the original art is now off-limits to the public, high-resolution 3D scans allow anyone to walk through its galleries virtually, examining every brushstroke without risking damage to the fragile pigments. Similar projects are safeguarding caves from Nevada to Namibia, creating backup copies of humanity's oldest masterpieces in case disaster strikes. But this tech isn't just about conservation, it's about discovery. Enhanced spectral imaging can detect traces of paint invisible to the naked eye, revealing faded artworks that might have been overlooked by earlier explorers. In Spain's Actun cave, such techniques uncovered an entire hidden gallery of Paleolithic art, its animals and symbols preserved behind a curtain of calcite deposits. Yet with every breakthrough comes new challenges. As climate change alters temperatures and humidity, caves that have been stable for millennia are now at risk. The slightest shift can cause ancient paintings to flake away or delicate formations to crumble. Even human breath, once harmless in well-ventilated caves, now poses a threat in sealed environments where rising CO2 levels accelerate decay. And then there are the looters, armed with the same satellite imagery and metal detectors as researchers, but with far darker intentions. In Bulgaria's Devil's Throat Cave, thieves used scuba gear to plunder Thracian gold artifacts before archaeologists could document them. The race is on. Will we use these tools to understand our past, or will we lose irreplaceable treasures to greed and negligence? The next decade could redefine our relationship with the underground. AI-powered analysis might decode forgotten cave symbols, linking disparate cultures across continents. Micro-robots could reach the submerged caves of Mars' Olympus Mons, searching for signs of life in lava tubes not so different from Earth's. And somewhere in an uncharted cavern, there might lie a discovery that upends our understanding of history, a new hominid species, a lost library of scrolls, or art that predates anything we've found. But these possibilities hinge on one fragile factor: our willingness to protect these vulnerable spaces, because caves aren't just holes in the ground, they're the archives of our planet and the keys to stories we've only begun to read. The future of exploration isn't just about finding what's hidden, it's about ensuring those secrets survive long enough to be understood. From the moment a young girl's candle first flickered across Altamira's painted bison to the robotic probes now mapping submerged caverns, these hidden chambers have served as Earth's memory vault, not just storing artifacts, but reshaping our very understanding of time. Muvial's chemical-fueled ecosystem whispers of life's boundless creativity, while Shanidar's flower-strewn graves force us to re-evaluate what it means to be human. Each discovery feels like finding a missing puzzle piece we didn't know was lost, revealing connections between cultures, species, and epochs that rewrite the stories we tell ourselves. Yet these caves offer more than just historical correction, they're masterclasses in patience. While human civilizations rise and fall in mere centuries, these underground sanctuaries operate on geological time. The Dead Sea Scrolls waited 2,000 years in their jaws. Chauvet's lions slept undisturbed for 36 millennia. There's profound humility in realizing how much of our planet's narrative remains filed away in darkness, indifferent to our curiosity. The Derinkuyu underground city didn't just shelter bodies, it preserved entire ways of living, from tethering rings for goats to chapels where prayers still seem to hum in the air. Technology now gifts us unprecedented access, but with it comes responsibility. Drones and AI can map Lascaux's fragile galleries without a single footprint, yet tourism and climate change threaten caves faster than we can document them. The tragic greening of Altamira's ceiling proves that admiration can be destructive. As melting glaciers expose Greenland's Norse artifacts only to crumble within days, we're reminded that preservation isn't passive, it's a race against time itself. Perhaps the greatest lesson these caves teach is that discovery isn't just about finding answers, it's about learning which questions to ask. Linear A's unbroken code and Patagonia's sunburst symbols remind us that some mysteries resist decoding, and that's okay. The real magic lies in the search, in knowing that beneath our feet, in flooded chambers and ice-locked tombs, fragments of our collective story still wait. So the next time you pass a hillside or a coastal cliff, consider what might lie hidden just beyond sight. Behind that unremarkable rock face could be paintings older than empires, scrolls that reshape faiths, or creatures rewriting biology's rules. The past isn't finished speaking, it's simply waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And when it does, we'll be reminded once again that history's most profound chapters aren't always written on paper. Sometimes they're painted in ochre on a cave wall, or pressed into clay by hands that dreamed of a future they'd never